Throughout the series, we have seen several variations of characters. For example, we have Evil Morty, Dictator Morty, Morty Prime, and so on. Almost every single member from the Smith family has their version of strong alternate versions, and the character whose alternate versions usually captivates me is Jerry Smith, and today he is the main topic of the video. I have already talked about some of the versions of Jerry in my previous videos, but I never had an opportunity to fully dedicate a video on him and decided that today is a better time than ever. Let's start with regular Jerry, the one that we see in the series. Jerry can be described as an insecure loser, a pathetic father, and a pitiful husband. He is always after his own interests and other people's acceptance, which leads him to make stupid mistakes that put him and his entire family in danger. Even though his relationship with his wife, Beth, is strained, he still loves her no matter what and doesn't abandon her. This in turn is seemingly also why Beth always chose Jerry in the end, despite the obvious fact that they are polar opposites. His meager intelligence is both his greatest weakness on paper. However, it also provides him with a far more happy life than the all-knowing Rick. The oblivious Jerry focuses on things that Rick sees as inferior, relationships and attachments. Despite being generally passive and weak most of the time, Jerry has the ability to channel the inner strength to face his fears, such as directly confronting the army of Mr. Meeseeks, destroying his and Beth's mythologs, and eradicating a bunch of Cronenbergs in Rick Potion number 9 when he and his wife were being ambushed by them. Near the end of the Rick Shank redemption, Jerry took a stand against Rick's toxic and controlling behavior towards the family, namely his apparent manipulation of Beth's father issues in order to live rent-free and his frequently putting his children in danger. Even still, Beth wound up defending Rick due to her abandonment issues in hopes that he wouldn't leave her again and filed a divorce with Jerry. They later got back together. I know that most of you already know, but he is from Dimension 5126. In the end of Morty Night Run, Rick and Morty swapped their Jerry with a wrong one after they lost their Jerry's ticket in the Jerry Baree. Jerry C-131 began living in that dimension. Here, the divorce that began in the Rick Shank redemption and ended in the Rick Shuri and Morty date never happened, and as a result, his life was worse than the Jerry he got swapped with due to not spending a brief time divorced. Later, after Rick accidentally reset interdimensional travelers, Jerry went back to his original dimension until the main family picked him up. This dimension's Smith family was left without a Jerry after the Jerry of Dimension C-131 turned into Mr. Frundles before he could get the opportunity to return here. As you already know, he is not an original Jerry that appeared in the series. That one is called Cronenberg Jerry, also known as Jerry Smith Prime. Like all Jerrys, Jerry always tried to keep the best interest of his family at heart, but his attempt at being the patriarch of the family was often misguided by his self-centered nature. This caused him a great deal of conflict with Rick, as his father-in-law clearly had no respect for him whatsoever. The key divergence in this Jerry's timeline came when Rick caused the entire human population of his dimension to mutate into Cronenbergs. Jerry was forced to take charge and fight, protecting his Beth and Summer and finally gaining the confidence to be the man Beth could be happy with. At one point, he became a much more cruel, sadistic, and wild man, turning feral when finding the portal gun and trying to kill Summer C-131. After the deaths of his Beth and Summer, he made his own way, gradually growing content to the point where when his Morty was returned to the dimension, he made no effort to keep Morty with him. His selfish tendencies manifested once again, however, when he tried to take Morty's things and run off, foiled mostly because Morty didn't have anything to begin with and was able to catch up. Jerry tells Morty that Rick was right and that everyone needs to let go, adopting Rick's attitude in apathy and selfishness. He also refused the opportunity to relocate to another dimension because he already wanted to move on. In the end, however, upon encountering the original Rick from his dimension and realizing he was planning something against Rick and Morty, he tried to catch this Rick by surprise and kill him, ultimately committing a rare, selfless act before this Rick killed him. However, even though he looks much more powerful than average Jerrys, he is not considered the strongest version of Jerry Smith. That title goes to Doofus Jerry, who is widely regarded as one of the strongest characters in the whole series. He appeared in Rick and Morty issue 21, which was released on December 28, 2016. Morty Smith enters the house with a black eye, gained after he walked into a door from watching Jessica bend over. When Jerry tries to claim that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, everyone doubts that Jerry has ever been in a fight. Embarrassed, Jerry storms off before he notices the portal gun. He decided to use that portal gun to meet his only Rick friend, Doofus Rick. In Dimension J19 Zeta 7, Doofus Rick is having a tea party before Jerry arrives, needing a friend. Thrilled to see his friend, Doofus Rick puts Eric Stoltz masked Morty in charge of the tea party before the two head out to an amusement park. As the two enjoy the park, the security service notices Jerry and Rick, alerting their boss, ordering that both of them be brought to him. When the two arrive, the boss reveals himself to be Doofus Jerry. Shocked that he has a counterpart on this Earth, Jerry accidentally reveals the existence of the multiverse. Intrigued, Doofus Jerry reveals that he is the most successful man on Earth, the literal dictionary definition of it, and offers to swap places with Jerry. Though tempted, Jerry ultimately denies, only to be knocked out. Held at gunpoint, Doofus Rick is forced to surrender the portal gun. Emerging in Dimension C-131, Doofus Jerry is instantly smitten by Beth, his charm quickly winning her over, even developing an attraction to Summer. As he salivates over his next conquests, he is confronted by Morty, who instantly sees through the imposter. After trying to have Doofus Jerry leave peacefully only to be threatened with death, Morty goes to Rick. Confronting Doofus Jerry on the patio, Rick tries diplomacy only to be scoffed at, calling Rick an old drunk. Though furious, Rick is eager to fight out Jerry only to be beaten down before he can even get a shot in. After decades of traversing the multiverse, Rick has finally met his better in Doofus Jerry. When Morty comes into his room in a panic, Rick reveals that he's tried everything up to and including throwing a cat at Doofus Jerry. At wit's end, Rick has decided to just detonate a neutrino bomb and be done with it. As the two argue over the bomb, Doofus Jerry shows up and reveals that he's disarmed it. After taunting the two about Beth's butthole, even if Morty takes a while to get it, Doofus Jerry beats them up again. Picking themselves up, Morty asks why Doofus Jerry doesn't just throw them out, only for Rick to reveal that they're not even worth that effort. Content that Summer is safe in a small protection dimension, Rick explains to Morty that he and Jerry exist on a spectrum as the predators and prey respectively. Normally, Ricks always win, but this Jerry is an anomaly. At this, Morty suggests simply calling in more Ricks. Back in Dimension J19 Zeta 7, Jerry regains consciousness only to be told by Doofus Rick of what happened. Deprived of his portal gun, Doofus Rick can't follow Doofus Jerry, but he can whip up a workaround, telling Jerry to come back in what feels like a month, but will actually be less. In Dimension C-131, Rick has grown desperate enough to call in reinforcements from the Citadel, the soldiers quickly placing Doofus Jerry under arrest. When Beth protests, Rick makes her understand that that's not her husband, only for her to reveal that, to the shock of Rick and Morty, she never laid with the intruder, having been at the hospital all night. In the Citadel, Rick discovers Doofus Jerry's origin, much to Rick's shock. After Jerry notices the Citadel's advanced technology, he makes for the genetic restructurer. Horrified, Rick realizes that the Doofus dimension isn't the weakest, it's the opposite side of the spectrum. It's a world where Jerrys are the predators and the Ricks are the prey. Stepping out, Doofus Jerry gives off a purple smoke as the Ricks convulse. Inspired by a plague that once struck his reality, Doofus Jerry has restructured his genes to be a poison to Rick. As Summer brings Rick and Morty inside her pocket dimension, Doofus Jerry takes full control of the Citadel and the Council. Having completely taken over the Citadel, Doofus Jerry prepares for the final phase of his conquest, ordering a search for the original Rick and Beth. In Dimension C-131, Rick, protected by the stimulated pain of a trio of Mortys, completes work on a giant robot, as all universe-threatening problems can be defeated through the usage of a giant robot. Back in Dimension J19 Zeta 7, Doofus Rick has managed to create portal fluid. After telling Jerry that it's not to be drunk but doused, the two traverse realities until they arrive in Rick's mecha. After Beth blames Jerry for everything, the mecha flies off. While the mecha Rick is initially a sign of hope for the trapped Ricks and Mortys, Doofus Jerry reveals his own, even larger mecha that beheads Mecha Rick, its head crashing into the council chamber. After Beth rejects Doofus Jerry, he tries to kill them only to be futilely delayed by Jerry, whom he punches in the gut, causing Jerry to vomit up the portal fluid. The fluid forms a portal that brings forth a giant worm that devours the would-be tyrant. After Rick atomizes the worm, he tells the council that they can lick his balls as a way of repaying their debt. As we can see, unlike most of his counterparts, Doofus Jerry was cruel, sadistic, ruthless, selfish, greedy, violent, and psychopathic. He conquered his Earth and became the richest and most successful man there, but with no sympathy or regard towards others. He is a power-hungry man unable to accept rejection, beating his version of Jerry up when he refused his offer to trade lives. Once he heard of multiple dimensions, he jumped at the idea of conquering the entire multiverse. He doesn't seem to have fallen in love prior to meeting Beth, seeing as there was no woman named Beth Sanchez born in his dimension. He is also really good at fighting, beating Rick and Morty with ease, and even taking down a hired thug in a back alley. He also possesses vast knowledge of weapons and technology, recognizing all the weapons and gear he saw at the Citadel of Rick's during his trial. He is also very resourceful, quickly entering the genetic restructurer to make himself poisonous to Rick's, thereby defeating all of them. He was one of the best characters introduced in the comics. I really liked the idea of him being this intelligent and unique. Judging by the way dimensions work, it is likely that another doofus Jerry is still out there, and I really hope that he will make an appearance on the show to scare the pants off viewers, and I really hope that we will see him in action sooner or later. But I really wonder what kind of character he will be. I'll be very disappointed if he was only a one-episode character, but given how Rick and Morty seemingly tries to introduce stronger versions of main characters, like Space Traveler Beth, Prime Rick, and Evil Morty, I think the one who will be Jerry's counterpart will be Doofus Jerry, especially since his Cronenberg version was killed at the end of the first episode, which I found very strange and suspicious. I don't know if he will be a villain like Rick Prime and Evil Morty or neutral Space Traveler Beth, but I am sure he will definitely have a major role if he appeared in the series, and maybe the best time for him to appear could be at the end of the season. However, even though he looks tough and extremely overpowered, he still is not the strongest version of Jerry Smith. That title comfortably goes to God Jerry from the Jerry Barry comics. The comic starts with Jerry Barry building, from where several Jerrys are leaving the place with a bus. What seems to be Jerry Barry employee Rick makes an announcement. He says that they are going to the most fun place in the multiverse. But since they are Jerrys, the one thing that he knows is that the more fun something is, the more likely it's going to kill them. He says that if any of them die, they will stay dead and he will just clone them so their Ricks won't demand a refund. And when they finally reached the blips and chits, all of them, including Jerry Barry employee Rick, couldn't hide their excitement. We can see several Jerrys, each with their own dimension names on their shirts. One of them has the most unique appearance, as he is a cat, likely from the Cat universe. The first Jerry introduced is Jerry X198, who shows interest in Gear Wars. This interaction provides insight into Gear Wars, a historical series of conflicts first mentioned in Season 1, Episode 11, Rick See Business, by Revolio Clockberg Jr. The machine hosting the game inquires about the number of wars considered part of the Gear Wars, revealing that it's 1. The conflict took place in the gear system and involved gears as both a coveted resource and a weapon. The deadliest weapon of the Gear Wars was considered propaganda, and the conflict concluded with a treaty written by Tom Stevenson. Jerry X198's answers enraged the machine, leading to his expulsion from the game with Gearophobe stamped on his forehead and being labeled a bigot. This scene adds specificity to a conflict deliberately obscured by the series, introducing dark implications. Following Gear Wars, Jerry encounters a strange machine. Inside, an alien being runs in circles while screaming, and Jerry, pushing a button, replaces the alien, trapping himself. Fortunately, Jerry U770 repeats the action, replacing Jerry X198. Buoyed by his victory, Jerry's confidence rises, leading him to a sack-punching game, which turns out to require comforting instead of punching. Labeled a sick man, Jerry's disappointment grows. Accidentally sitting on a Roy-themed chair, Jerry plays the game depicting life where Morty lives until his 70s, but Jerry dies early, reflecting his constant unluckiness. Frustrated, Jerry seeks a fortune teller's guidance on a game that won't harm him. Instead, he receives cryptic information about Logan, leading to a beating. Encountering another Jerry, E210, Jerry is invited to play Grief Counselor Taxi, a game with a somber theme. In this game, Jerry interacts with a ginger woman who has lost her kids, experiencing depression. The scene involves Rick and Beth trying to comfort Jerry during this challenging period. Jerry's conversation with the woman results in a car crash, leading to her father's death, adding to Jerry's woes. Next, Jerry encounters Jerry F008, aiming to obtain 10 billion tickets for a God pill. Jerry F008 engages in various extreme activities to amass tickets but falls short. Instead, he receives a keychain which turns out to be a personal self-destruction device. Jerry X198 is then taken by E302 to a photo booth where they receive a note predicting their death. frustrated, Jerry X198 spends 4 hours playing the conflict resolution game, winning 10 billion tickets. After becoming a god, he reflects on the suffering of Jerrys and decides to execute all the Jerrys around him to end their endless pain and punishment. Unfortunately, due to YouTube's policies, I can't show you the page where this happens, but trust me, it is pretty brutal. At the end of the chapter, we see Jerryboree employee Rick, who is irritated that all the Jerrys are dead because now he has to make 157 Jerry clones. In the end, he accomplishes the task and expresses how much he hates his job, concluding the chapter. Another interesting Jerry that has appeared in the Rick and Morty comics is from Rick and Morty Presents Council of Ricks. I have covered the full comics in my previous videos, so I won't delve into the entire chapter, focusing on the part where Jerry appears. In one scene, Mr. Poopy Butthole is watching TV to enjoy some dog videos when Rick Prime suddenly appears on the screen. Rick Prime confesses to hacking the dog video to surprise Mr. Poopy Butthole and proceeds to punch him. They question Mr. Poopy Butthole, who is initially hesitant to talk, fearing they would kill him for the truth. To make him talk, Zeta Alpha Rick brings a bag full of snakes and a raccoon, prompting Mr. Poopy Butthole to reveal details. According to him, the mission was supposed to fail, aiming to eliminate all Ricks smart enough to stop them and take over the Citadel. Rick the Fourth questions him about the culprit, leading to Mr. Poopy Butthole's abrupt lamination like a bookmark. The pursuit of the perpetrator ensues, with Rick the Fourth revealing he has locked onto the energy signature of his gun, leaving no escape unless the culprit hides in the sewers. Deciding to split up, Rick the Fourth is unveiled as a Ricklicant and betrays Rick Prime. In the subsequent scenes, Rick the Fourth leads Rick Prime to the supposed leader of the operation, covered in a strange furry coat and chains. The leader asks about the original Rick the Fourth's whereabouts, revealing that half of him is in the lava universe and the other half in the universe where desks eat people. Rick Prime comments on cloning the most influential Ricks in the same universe and questions how Morty Prime got involved. Jerry's role as the mastermind shocks Rick Prime. Jerry claims to be the smartest Jerry across the multiverse and explains his goal to monopolize the Citadel, selling Ricks to other planets, aiming to be among the top 17 companies in the universe. Rick Prime criticizes Jerry's idea, highlighting Jerry's lack of intelligence compared to Rick's. He kicks Jerry in the balls, and it's revealed that Rick the Fourth wasn't a clone, but a real one. It was all part of a plan to fool the Jerrys into thinking Rick the Fourth was a traitorous clone. The fight between the Ricks and the army of Jerrys ensues, with the Ricks emerging victorious. The main Jerry attempts to escape to another dimension, but Rick Prime interferes with his destination, sending him to a dimension where desks eat people, ultimately foiling Jerry's plans. So, which version of Jerry was your favorite? Let me know in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more. Lonnie Brooks out. Bye.